Okay, we'll go ahead and get started. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Rocky Mountain NetSuite user group. My name is Corey Anderson, and I'll be the host of the meeting today. Here is our agenda. For about 15 minutes or so, we're going to have our welcome and talk about our general business. We'll also have a time for member announcements. That's an opportunity for anybody out there looking to hire somebody in the NetSuite space or looking for a new role in the NetSuite space. Anything related, accounting, anything like that. So we'll give you a chance to unmute yourself and make an announcement. And then we also have the ability to do announcements in our meeting chat. After that, we'll hear from our key sponsor, meeting sponsor today, Gatekeeper. And then from 9 to 11, our main presentation, Advanced PDF and HTML Templates. That'll be presented by Pierce Blodgett of Stratos ERP Partners. And then we'll hear from Dana Larson, some tips and tricks. And after that, we'll have our open forum. And the open forum is an opportunity for you to ask questions, help out other community members. The questions don't have to be related to today's topic. It can be about anything NetSuite related. So that's a great opportunity to just ask any question that you have on your plate. Membership to our user group is free. You can register at rmnsug.org. When you register, it ensures that you get a notification of upcoming meetings and events. You also have the ability to access our LinkedIn forum. So if you are not a member, please sign up today. Where you can find us. We have a website, rmnsug.org. We are also on YouTube. You can search RMNSUG. We also have a LinkedIn channel, and there's the URL to our LinkedIn channel. And real quick, I'm going to just hop over and I'm going to show you our website. And I just want to highlight how you can use our website to find more information. We record and post all of our meeting videos and slides. We've been doing that for at least 10 years now. So if you go to our website, you go to posts. And in the posts, you'll see a list of all of the meetings that we've done. This is our last meeting on advanced revenue management from Mike Keckline. If there's a specific topic that you'd like to see if we've talked about, you can type in the search bar. So let's just say you want to see something on safe searches, and then you'll get a list of the meetings that we've done on safe searches. And obviously, we've been doing safe searches for quite some time now. If there's anything else you want to search for, you can just search in this search bar. You can also browse by date, so everything is listed here. Also, I wanted to just highlight our LinkedIn forum. So here's our LinkedIn forum, Rocky Mountain NetSuite User Group Forum. This is a place where you can post information related to NetSuite, ask questions, interact with the group. It is now an open forum, so anybody can join. We do kind of have some rules around posting. We don't want it to be spammy, not a ton of advertising, and so the purpose of the group is to engage with each other, ask questions, answer questions, post job listings, anything like that. So please check out our user group on LinkedIn if you haven't already. You can just search for Rocky Mountain NetSuite User Group, or I believe RMNSUG would bring it up as well. All right, so that's where our website. Our LinkedIn forum is also now public, and I mentioned that. I'd like to take just a moment to introduce the board. We are a board of volunteers. Our user group is a nonprofit, and we all work behind the scenes to bring you these meetings every other month and make sure that the content is relevant to everybody. So that's me in the upper left-hand corner. I'm Corey Anderson, the president of the user groups and owner of Stratos ERP Partners. Then we have our sponsorship and member chair, Margie Cominos of the Plant Scan Corporation. We have our communications chair, Mike Keckline of Vertifor. We have our speaker chair, Peggy Ebleth of RSM US. Our treasurer, Dana Larson of Dana Larson Consulting. And our newest board member, our events chair, Ryan Longnecker of Collective Mind Technologies. So thank you all board members for everything that you do to keep this user group running year after year. I definitely appreciate it. So here's the opportunity for member announcements. Please, if you have, I'm going to wait just a minute or two. If you have an announcement, you can feel free to unmute yourself. If you're shy, you can post it in the chat window, or you can go to our LinkedIn forum, which Ryan just posted a link in our chat window to the forum. You can go post any announcements there as well. So I'm going to pause just a moment if anybody has an announcement to share. Any announcements to share? Okay, announcements going once, going twice. All right, if you think about it later, feel free to post it in the chat window, and then also our LinkedIn forum is always there to post any announcements. So our next topic here is evaluations. We do send out evaluations. They should be sent near the end of the meeting today. Please take a few moments to let us know how we're doing. We do read and act on the feedback from those evaluations. Some of the most important things that we take from those evaluations are future meeting topics that you want to hear about. And then also, and I'll mention this a little bit later as well, if you have any ideas for in-person happy hour events, we are looking and thinking about different ways to engage locally, and so we'd love your recommendations on what you think might be a fun in-person event that we can do. So please take a minute to fill out those evaluations. It is really important to us. So meeting sponsorship, as I said, membership to our user group is free. The cost of our meetings is supported by 2 levels of sponsorship. We have SuiteApp and consulting sponsors. SuiteApp sponsors must be available through suiteapp.com. Consulting sponsors must offer NetSuite consulting services and have certified NetSuite consultants on staff. For our consulting sponsorships, we have 2 options. You can go to our website, rmnsug.org/sponsorship. You can read about our standard sponsorship offers, but as a consulting sponsor, if you are a NetSuite consulting firm and you'd like to sponsor the user group, you can do so in the form of a presentation to the user group, and we'll work with you on the content and the time of when you would be able to present. But that is another way that a consulting sponsor can support the user group. CPE credits, our meetings are all eligible for CPE credits. Throughout the meeting, there will be polling questions that you must answer to be eligible for the credits. You must have also registered for the Zoom meeting with your first name, last name, and email address. So make sure that your Zoom app is up to date for the polling question pop-ups. One thing that we've noticed in the past is sometimes the polling questions don't pop up if you're using Zoom through a browser window. So we recommend using the Zoom app on your computer to be in the meeting, and that way that ensures that the polling questions will pop up for you. CPE credits take 4 to 6 weeks to issue, so please be patient. As I mentioned, Peggy is also a volunteer, and so a huge thank you to Peggy and RSM for sponsoring the CPE credits. But it does
they're taking about to 6 to 8 right now. So the ones from the last meeting will be going out. I got the certificate early this week, and I just need to do the mail merge to get them out to everyone. So
okay.
It's very dependent. Sometimes they get back to me like in a week. Sometimes it takes a little bit. So I do apologize for delays, but you will get them.
So maybe I'll update my slide to 6 to 8 weeks.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, it really depends. It depends on how busy they are.
Okay. Yeah, understandable. Thank you, Peggy. So please be patient. You will get your credits if you fill out the polling questions and follow all the rules. And thank you for being here for the CP credits today. So I'd like to take just a moment to recognize our last event, which I think was probably the most fun event that we've done yet. It was our NetSuite Trivia Night. This was hosted by Ryan Longnecker, who you can see in the upper left-hand corner here. And here's some of the attendees today. Unfortunately, for some reason, we didn't get a winner or a photo of the winning. Well, actually, the winning team are see these guys in the middle, the top middle. some guys from AppWrap. And we had a trophy, but we don't have a picture of the trophy, but we need to make sure we do that next time. But anyway, thanks for everybody that attended our NetSuite Trivia Night. We hope you had a good time. We've had a lot of positive feedback on that event, and we'd like to continue doing more of that type of event. So stay tuned for upcoming in-person events. Some of the possibilities, things we're thinking about are maybe Top Golf, game show battle rooms, Super Smash rooms, axe throwing, bowling, those types of things. So if anybody has any other ideas of things that we can do as a local NetSuite community, please use those evaluations to mention those ideas, because we're going to be doing, we want to do a lot more fun stuff and more engaging and interactive. All right, so for our upcoming meetings in July this year, we have our accounting spotlight. That'll be with Dana Larson. In September is our inventory management topic, and that'll be Margie Caminos and myself presenting on that one. In November, we have a new topic that we've never done before. That'll be native NetSuite budgeting versus NetSuite planning and budgeting. And that'll be presented by a gentleman who's a NetSuite EPM expert. So that should be a great topic. And then in January next year, we come back to our reporting. So in January, every year we do reporting, whether that's native reports, saved searches, Suite Analytics workbooks. We might look into do NetSuite Analytics Warehouse, that type of thing. So that'll be coming up in January. March is an open slot. Not sure what we're going to do yet. So if you have any recommendations, that's when we plug in something, maybe a new topic. And then May next year, we'll be on workflows. So we have our schedule planned out. Make sure you stay tuned for all of the meeting invites as we go through our next season. So at this time, I'd like to take just a few moments to thank our sponsors. So our consulting sponsor today is Stratos ERP Partners. Stratos ERP Partners is a certified NetSuite Alliance partner and a Celigo standard partner specializing in NetSuite implementations, post-implementation support, and integrations. They offer personalized consulting services designed to align business processes with NetSuite's capabilities, ensuring efficient and tailored ERP solutions. Their expertise spans multiple industries, including e-commerce, hospitality, financial services, professional services, manufacturing, and many more, with a strong commitment to client success through hands-on support. Stratos focuses on driving growth and efficiency by optimizing business software systems. So thank you, Stratos, for sponsoring the user group today. And at this point, I'd also like to say thank you to our Suite App sponsor, Gatekeeper. And right now, I'm going to turn it over to Ben Parker from Gatekeeper to talk to you a little bit about what Gatekeeper does.
Hey, thanks, Corey. I apologize, everybody, for the background. I'm going to switch over to sharing my screen real quick. See if this works. So I was telling Corey that I'm actually in a coffee shop today because I'm the designated parent. I've got 3 teenage boys, and the only thing that gets more bumps and bruises than they do is the truck that they drive. And I'm the designated parent to bring it to get a repair shop today. So I'm trying to do double duty. But thanks for having me today. I know you only have me for a few minutes, but I wanted to introduce Gatekeeper. We've been in the NetSuite ecosystem for quite a while now. We actually are the International Partner of the Year, which is exciting. Last year at Suite World. We're actually a UK-based company, but we've always been remote. Actually, before it was even cool, before COVID, we've always been a remote company. We don't have an office. So I manage the NetSuite partnership around the world, mostly just do my time between London and the West Coast of the US, and I leave the APAC to somebody else because that's just a little bit brutal. I'm actually calling from Maine right now, just outside of Portland, Maine. So it puts me in a nice position. So next week, I have to be at the NetSuite office in Santa Monica. I'm going to stop in Denver actually on the way and do a couple meetings there. And then I go back to London the following week. So I'm all over the place. But enough about that. Let's talk a little bit about what Gatekeeper does. So Gatekeeper is the only one. And actually, before I do that, I just want to say quickly, and I'll put a link to this in the chat as well. We do have a raffle today to make it fun. Everybody loves a fun raffle. So I'll be mailing directly to you the AirPods that we've got raffled. So click that QR code. I'll put a link to the registration as well. We'll make it fun, and I'll get that out to you later on today. But a little bit about Gatekeeper. So we do vendor slash supplier. So it depends where you're coming from, but we call vendor contract management and contract lifecycle management. And I want to just give you a quick snapshot of this. I'll send a link to this presentation because I'm not going to go, I don't have enough time to go through everything, but I just wanted to kind of give you an idea of what we do because I've always been in the spend and expense management side of the NetSuite relationship in my previous life. And so it's been a little bit of an education for me to let people know. Last year at SuiteWorld, people would come to the booth and be like, well, what is vendor management? What is contract management? I didn't even know there's a better way to do it. And this gives you a good snapshot of what we do. This is the other slide I stole, and it's a little blurry. I apologize, but this is nice because people are always like, okay, so I think I can do some of this in NetSuite, and that's true. Or I think I can do some of this in DocuSign, let's say. Well, here's where Gatekeeper lands, and we're the only one that in the NetSuite ecosystem that's built in NetSuite, and we're a standalone product as well. But we're the only ones that do both the vendor and supplier onboarding, and we do the contract actual repository management. And then one other layer of what we do is this whole idea of risk. And right now, obviously, with all the tariffs and everything that's going on, companies are very vulnerable with their suppliers. And so we also have a lot of functionality that goes around the risk of each of your suppliers and your vendors, which is pretty cool. Here's an idea of kind of where we are. So we are built, we're a hybrid app right inside of NetSuite. But don't worry. So for some people, if they don't have a NetSuite license, they can actually get the same information in the actual Gatekeeper user interface. You do have this give you a quick view of how we look. And so where we're keeping all your contracts, we don't charge for storage. So somebody may want to keep their contracts and their vendor documentation in NetSuite. Maybe they want to just keep it in Gatekeeper, or maybe they want to do it in both, and that's completely fine. We don't have any charges for users, so that's all built into the license. It's unlimited users, unlimited storage within Gatekeeper. Obviously, this is a picture of the same information, but in Gatekeeper. So you have access to all those contracts, all those vendors right in the system, which is pretty exciting. The vendor portal, this is very in supplier portal, depending on how you want to say it. This is exciting. People can brand their portal. So any company or vendor that they're using, supplier that they're using that has to, on an annual basis or an onboarding basis, need to put in documentation for security, due diligence, whatever industry you may be in, you can actually build that out so they have access to this and get that documentation in there. It builds in reminders so you don't have to police it, and it also is a repository for that all that information. And I mentioned the risk piece. I don't have a lot of time to talk about it, but this is a really exciting new piece that we're doing because obviously beyond credit scores of your suppliers, we also want to be tracking geopolitical risk. If they're in a certain location that's going to make them vulnerable, we actually put those assessments, and we actually have some guidelines, but we actually can customize it for your industry and your company as well. And then obviously we're on the AI train, so we built in a lot of automation anyway in the contract piece because you can use Gatekeeper to actually negotiate all your contracts, whether it's standard templates or kind of out of the norm custom contracts you may have. All of that interaction, the communication internally and externally is done and kept in Gatekeeper. So you can always now know, depending on what department you're in, you can know actually where it stands, who you're waiting for, or where it's being held up internally or externally, and we track all that. Each one of those has a step, and we actually have a workflow for that, and we can customize it for you, or you can use our workflows. But then on top of that, we've actually put in a whole other AI layer that's actually taking some of those workflows and building in some steps where it actually says, okay, I know that if it's on these standard terms, we can automatically get that e-signature from the president, let's say, because this is a standard NDA or this is a standard contract that we have with our standard terms. No need to go through all the extra steps. So that's one good example of all the cool things that we're doing on the automation front. And then one last slide, obviously my information's down below. I'll put a link to this presentation. I've been doing a lot of the user groups across the country. This is my first time being with this group, so I'm pretty excited. And I actually, Corey, make sure you keep me posted on the next event. Those sound fun. I'd love to do some axe throwing or so, whatever it may be. But please click on the link, reach out, ask any questions you want. I'm always here. And I certainly am in the Denver area quite a bit. So if there's other meetings, I'd love to attend as well. Thank you very much, Corey.
Thanks, Ben. I appreciate it. Make sure you sign up to be a member and you'll get automatic notifications of our happy hour events.
I sure will. Thank you.
All righty. Okay. Thank you so much, Gatekeeper and Ben. Yeah, please make sure that you post your raffle link in the chat window there. And then everybody make sure you get a chance to go sign up for that raffle. At this point, we're going to go ahead and turn it over to Pierce from Stratos ERP Partners for our main presentation today.
Thanks, Corey. Awesome. Pop on camera real quick just to say hey to everybody. Hope y'all are having a great Wednesday. Thanks so much for having me first and foremost, Corey and team and everybody. There's a lot of work going on behind the scenes that I don't think a lot of us see. I'm in probably the first year of trying to start a chapter similar to this in the Phoenix area, and it's a lot. But I haven't been in the game for 10 years, so that's incredible. Yeah, again, thanks for having me, and thanks for everyone for showing up, because this is really important for me, but I think the topic at hand is very crucial for all businesses of all sizes. So excited to talk about it. Let me go ahead and share my screen and we'll get presenting. All right. Awesome.
Okay, looks good.
So, awesome. Thanks, Corey. Yeah, so today, talking about advanced PDF and HTML templates. So, first and foremost, my name's Pierce Blodgett. Super nice to meet all of you guys. I've been in NetSuite for about 10 years, coming on 10 years. So, what's that? Just as long as the Rocky Mountain NetSuite user group's been tracking their meetings, which is incredible. A little bit more about me. I'm a certified ERP NetSuite consultant, recently passed, and super excited about that because it's been a long journey, and I think that proves a lot of good things. But what's more important is that Corey and Dana from the team invited me to do this speech, so I think that speaks for itself. Today, I know this topic. I know it can be a little daunting. It can be perhaps a bit dry at times, but we're going to keep it light. We're going to keep it fun. At least we're going to try for the first hour of this session. So let's rock into the agenda. First and foremost, little overview. Like I said, we're going to keep it light. Go through NetSuite, see some general terminology. We're going to review some screens, some preferences. Again, trying to keep this as light as possible, because I know it's tough to look at. First time you may pop into code and you're reading a different language, it feels. Secondly, we're going to look at some key concepts. So hope to give you enough key terminology, background of the topic, and kind of all of the different components that feed into NetSuite and this overall process with the advanced templates. We need to go back and look at the standard functionality and the standard templates before we can really answer like why these advanced PDF HTML templates are so important and can really, really drastically change your business. And then we're going to look at some common use cases. So really, again, trying to keep it light, but get your brain going. It's early. It's early for me. I'm in Phoenix, Arizona, so still catching up to you guys. So yeah, some common use cases. Again, just getting the brain thinking. Maybe you haven't thought about these potential fixes. Maybe you've thought about them, but you've never really understood or wanted to dive into these templates. Quick background on me. I got into the advanced PDF HTML templates, I believe, because no one else wanted to. That's my guessing I'm sticking to it. Certainly was a little nervous to get into it. Again, totally understand, and that's why I'm here to help you if you're feeling the same way. This was also a really big first jump for me into more of my technical career that I'm trying to attain. So I've been both an end user, maybe like most of you all, and now I'm on the consulting side. So I've seen both ends. And really, I love pressing buttons in NetSuite. I know all the navigation, probably similar to all of you, but I really wanted to expand my career a bit more and learn this technical side. So I do want to say that these templates are really important to me personally because of kind of where they've taken me. And so we're going to talk about kind of what that looks like, you know, toward the end, especially if we have the time, which I believe we will. So we'll talk about kind of what's next, what you can get out of that. But first and foremost, we'll go through some more less common use cases. So again, things that we've seen in NetSuite, things our clients bring to us, something I've seen as an end user before, and you know, talking with folks like Corey and some of my team to figure out kind of what's really important to present here. After that, a much needed break, I'm sure. And after the break, that'll be around, let's see, 9 my time, 10 mountain time. We'll get into more advanced topics and tactics. So at this point, we'll actually look at some code. We'll talk about the structure of the code. We'll talk about what the NetSuite engine kind of has to offer. And again, trying to keep this as light as possible for you all. But knowing that we're going to have to dive into it, especially if you are going to do this in the future. We've got to rip the Band-Aid off. We've got to dive in a little bit deeper. I promise it will be easy. And then finally, some best practices, at least from my point of view. And then Dana has some tips and tricks. And ironically, I think we'll align on some of them. So let's move on. Awesome. So quick overview, just some questions to answers. I think these are the biggest kind of questions that I could come up with as a presenter to say, okay, what are we going to get out of this topic? So first and foremost, what are advanced PDF and HTML templates? And honestly, like, why am I here? What are we talking about? How does this even apply to NetSuite? Okay, we're talking about advanced PDF templates. Are there non-advanced? You know, what's the point of these? Why am I using them? Okay, Pierce, you just put some code on the screen and it's kind of giving me anxiety, sweating a little bit. Like how, you know, do I need to be a developer? Right? Like, do I have to have that background? And the answer is no, right? If you're like me and you're interested at all in this, and hey, if you're looking at the screen right now and you can read some of this, it's making some sense. Like, I promise you, you're 50% of the way there. Yeah, like what's HTML? What's CSS? Like, are those stocks? Like, seriously, what am I doing here and what's next? And then, like I said, what can I do now? Now that we've kind of learned all of this, this will be more toward the end, obviously, but what can I do now with this new information? And like I said, we'll come back to this code, but if you can somewhat read this, I promise you, you're on your way. So I'll always be an advocate, cheering you guys on, just like I hope you're cheering me on in my technical journey, but connect with me on LinkedIn. I would love to follow your journey and see kind of how that goes, but excited to be here and talk to you all. Let's dive into it. Awesome. So key concepts, like I said, a few definitions to cover. Wanted to get these out there, just kind of get them in front of you in case you're not familiar with them, in case you haven't heard them. We'll be talking about some of these. They'll come up. I'll be in NetSuite walking through it. You'll probably hear me say some of these. Just want to get them out of the way now in case you again, haven't heard them, don't want any surprises. So let's talk about it. Forms, NetSuite Forms. This is the UI control that NetSuite has in place. So really, forms are so crucial and important. If you don't know about forms right now, welcome to being here. This is going to change your life. You're going to become a power user if you get really good at forms in NetSuite. Template, something that is driven on the forms, but really it's a blueprint for how NetSuite either prints or emails something like an invoice, a purchase order, whatever you may be using in NetSuite. It's fair to say there are many different industries in NetSuite, so the way I use it, the way I've done it may be different from you. So again, trying to keep that mind open. We're keeping it light. We're thinking, we're brainstorming. What can this functionality bring to you as a person and your company from a systems perspective? So obviously the end goal here is a PDF output. So spoiler alert, that's why we're here. That's exactly what this process is going to do. It's going to spit us out a PDF file with all of our NetSuite data already finally formatted exactly how we need it. We're going to be talking about some dynamic content. So really, this just means it's content that's available within the database, NetSuite being our database. If you need a good visualization for this, essentially, and all my accounting people out there, this might help you too. Essentially, NetSuite is a big spreadsheet. So all we're doing is connecting tabs and entries in those columns and rows. And if you think about NetSuite like that, I promise it's not too overwhelming and you can figure it all out. So really, dynamic content is just anything that, we can get out of the system. And then more the dynamic part is just knowing that it changes and having certain outputs change that data that we can access. Hard-coded, somewhat of a developer term, you might have heard it, but essentially setting a static value or something that doesn't change. So, if I had to make a business card and it pulled in all of our names, from NetSuite, I'm not going to hard code a single name on there because I need to pull all of our names out of NetSuite. That'll make a lot more sense in the future. Record is really any saved object in NetSuite. So if I go back to my Excel, thought there, a record is really a tab within Excel that represents something specific. So if I have a tab on my spreadsheet in Excel and it's for, I don't know, customers, vendors, whatever that might be. First row is, ABC Corp. And all of my columns out to the right have all of those values. That's effectively what NetSuite is, but NetSuite just, a little more done up, professionaler looking than Excel would be. But effectively, that's a record. And then field reference. We'll talk about this, more as we get into the code itself, but this is going to be the internal ID of a field. So that will make a lot more sense once we get into NetSuite, but essentially everything in NetSuite has some sort of internal ID, which is either system generated or maybe you make it yourself. But those are going to be literal references that never change, and they're so important to get right and to know how to access them and then use them. All right. Hopefully we haven't lost anybody. Hopefully no one's left out of boredom. Promise I'll keep it high level. All right. So forms, talked about those first. I really, really believe they're so crucial to everything that's in this. Even outside of this process here with the advanced PDF templates, forms are going to control really everything you see in NetSuite. But again, even more than that, like buttons and tabs and field groupings and actions and sublists. I even put a tip down here. If you learn forms, this is one of the first things I learned in NetSuite, change the way that I was able to operate and kind of maneuver in the system, really make it our own businesses, which is something I harp on. I think it's so important that you have, how do I say it? Like, it's so important to have buy-in from your company. It's so important to make NetSuite specific to your company. I always remember the story from when I first got into consulting. I'd only ever been in one NetSuite my whole life. So I go and log into a client's NetSuite and it doesn't look the same. It doesn't feel the same. I know it's NetSuite, but it's not. So again, it's one of those things that I really do feel is so crucial that you really make NetSuite your own. It's going to have that buy-in from your employees, from your users. And really that's going to change, oh my gosh, everything. Change management just starts with buy-in. So sorry for that tirade. As you can tell, I've been in NetSuite for 10 years and I wasn't looking for love, but you know, I think it found me. So that's my story. So back to forms, what you're all here for. So again, controlling your user interface. We have entry and transaction forms. So that difference is important, but we'll talk about it a little bit more as we log into NetSuite. So entry forms being more item, customer, vendor, think no GL impact, whereas transaction forms are going to be purchase orders, which doesn't have a GL impact. So crossed myself there. Invoices, statements, all the fun things that we love dealing with. So took a quick screenshot here. I promise we'll go click around in a little bit. But kind of the 4 or 5 most important fields of a transaction form, at least to what we're discussing today. I've kind of highlighted those in red. So the name of the form, trust me that the end goal is to have one, I would allow 2 forms, but the end goal is to have the minimum amount of forms that you can have for any transaction or entry, if you would. So this quick example, I've just named it Stratos Custom Invoice. This is an invoice form. It only controls the invoices. And again, I say we only want to have one. Maybe I would allow 2, because this is really where we need to not have this technical debt. We don't need to have a bunch of different forms floating around where, okay, we added a new field. We've got to go add it to 6 different invoice forms. We can't be doing that. Further down, we have the printing type. So again, kind of why we're all here. Currently, it's set to basic. So the basic printing type is the non-advanced templates that we will discuss today, but they're not the main topic conversation. In fact, I am no good at them. So if I even tried to teach you how to do the basic ones, you might come away with less knowledge than you were intending to. So again, not going to harp too much on the basics, but just wanted to call it out that this is where you make the change. So following that, we then have the PDF and the HTML layouts. So these layouts, again, we'll talk about them. They are the basic layout. They control either the PDF output or the HTML controlled output, which to my knowledge is a bit older and outdated. Anyway, we won't really be using them. And if you are today, my goal is to motivate you to not. And we'll also talk about email message template and some other fields on the form like disclaimer, logo, address. Again, sorry to harp on it. Forms are so important, especially to what we're doing today. And I'm super excited to kind of learn with you. So let's go to NetSuite. All right. So hopefully you can all see my NetSuite, but today we are going to be living mostly under the customization tab. So I'm logged in as administrator, so I'm in the Classic Center. Thinking most of you are too, or you have access to this in some sense, but today we are mostly going to live under customization and forms. So forms are going to hold most of everything built around, again, forms, which is NetSuite's kind of user interface. It's UI, everything that you see and kind of interact with. So specifically, we are going to be talking about advanced PDF and HTML templates. So spoiler alert, you'll also be here for the rest of the day. So let's talk briefly entry forms and transaction forms. I mentioned earlier that entry forms are going to be related to, like entity, like a contact, or perhaps an item. Inventory detail, we've got some interesting ones here. Fair warning, I'm in a demo account. It's probably slow. It's probably weird. It's probably got some interesting scripts running that I have no control over. And then transaction forms, again, we mentioned them. We've got invoices, statements, sales orders, opportunities, and deposits, etc. If and when you ever need to change something, this is where I would go first. So let's look at an invoice custom form. I've already messed with this one and obviously named it the Stratos custom invoice. Kind of quick one here. If I click this, meaning to go to the transaction form, it's not even worth the demo with the slow account. If I click that, it's going to take me to an entry screen for an invoice. So I always want to edit and not click the name directly. Don't be like me, you'll be stuck there forever. So I'm going to edit the form currently. I was worried I might not have, enough. Always worried about time and, am I going to have enough to fill in the gaps? Is it going to be overkill? I've been doing this for so long. I have a lot of information on the topic, but luckily the slowness of this account will just eat up all that time. So I don't have to ramble to you all with, perhaps useless knowledge. So here we are, custom transaction form. Again, I'm going to assume that most of you probably have some good chops with this, but for quick overview and for those that might not, this is really where, again, I mentioned we're controlling the UI. So first thing here, tabs. If I don't ever want to see the GL impact tab, I'm just going to hide it. My accountants would go crazy for that. Screen fields, we're hiding fields. We're making fields mandatory. We're setting them to disabled. We're changing the group that they display on an actual invoice page. Have that invoice loaded once we get back. One thing that you might be familiar with today is on the transaction forms, we do have a section for printing fields. So this is specific to I'm going to call them non-advanced templates, but perhaps the standard templates is a good word. This is where we control what fields we want to print on the non-advanced templates. So I see this a lot. I see customers that, are perhaps still on the basic one. They're controlling everything here, right? Okay, I don't want to show page numbers. I'm going to uncheck this box. We'll go look at that template here in a minute, but this is kind of the base control. And again, it's an earlier type of customization that NetSuite rolled out. So you have less control. which again is why we're here to talk about the advanced ones, but I think it's crucial to know where we come from, and why we're here and, what we're doing. So columns, this is an interesting one to kind of keep in mind, but this is going to control the table outputs, which we'll talk about soon. So enough of me rambling. Let's go put this all together. So I loaded an invoice from my new bar. And once my invoice loads, I'm at a blank screen. This is a blank NetSuite record to be entered upon. I love filling out fields. It's what I do for a living. My first choice here is a form. So I mentioned I would love if there was only ever one form. That would make everything easier. I know life's not that way. In this case, we have lots of different forms to choose from. To loop back to where we were, I now have a choice for the Stratos custom invoice form. So I'm going to go ahead and choose that. You saw my screen change. You saw that we've got different fields, kind of a different feel and layout. I promise I didn't work on this very hard, so don't roast me too bad in the chat. But again, the form that we edited is going to control the UI, which is, back to my original point, why you'll be a power user if you learn how to manipulate these forms. Forms are stored with the record or entry that we input. I think that's another key concept. So if I enter in all these details and I have it under this Stratos custom invoice form, once I load this back up again, I'm going to have the same view. It's going to be stuck to this form because it can be sticky. There's, some features around that where you can not have it store with the form, or you can. We won't get into that. So why is that important? Well, because once I create that invoice, I'm stuck with this form. And what did we learn about the form? The form is what's going to control the printing types. And, if I have a remittance slip or a disclaimer or an address or a logo, the form is going to be crucial to how NetSuite reacts or wants to, interact with this record entry. So I've done us all a favor and entered in some invoices pre-hand, just so you don't have to see me fumble on the keyboard. Quick thing about me is that I love having a good view here. So I always have somewhat of an edited view. This is a demo account, so it's junk anyway, but I did add in the column here for custom form. So if we're back to my Excel analogy, this looks like an Excel sheet to me, and I feel comfortable navigating it, and we're ready to rock and roll. So I have an invoice down here. The custom form tied to the invoice is the one I recently showed you, the Stratos custom invoice. So if I click into this invoice, invoice 642, knew this was going to happen. There we go. All right. So kind of looks the same, just filled out. Same setup, same format. Again, I keep harping on it, but the reason that we're here is that once I hit this print button, the print is going to ask the template or the form of this invoice. So we're going to look back at the form quickly. If you get dizzy from me flipping back and forth, you should watch me work my day job because it's a mess. So currently I'm set up to basic. We are going to print out the standard transaction layout. I don't even know if it comes standard on the newer NetSuite versions these days. Just because this kind of basic printing type is a little more outdated and archaic. But we're just going to see what that looks like. I've been doing this for a while now that I kind of just know what these look like. So if I ever get, a vendor bill or I'm looking through a client's vendor bills or something, anyway, I'm going to see something pop up and it's going to be, oh, wow, that's special. Hope you guys are feeling patriotic today. Wow. Awesome. Okay, so this subsidiary has a logo and the logo is incredibly large. Oh, Ryan in the chat, I love it. Let me show you the other way we can look at this form. So we've been talking, well, we will talk about the advanced templates today. Let's first talk about the transaction form PDF layouts and the transaction form HTML layouts. And I will show you exactly what this was supposed to look like. So my custom PDF layouts, which should match here. PDF layout, standard transaction layout. I'm looking at a list of all those layouts I could ever choose from. And I have a standard transaction layout here. This is what the UI interface looks like to edit this, which was a little further down in my presentation, but I wanted to show you guys this preview button just to kind of give you the general outline of what these look like. Again, I could spot them a mile away. It's kind of a fun game to play. I'm getting pretty good at the not standard ones too. I can almost sniff out whenever something's NetSuite coded. And it's exciting, right? I'm like, ooh, they're on NetSuite. Let's reset for a second. So we've talked about an invoice. We've talked about a custom transaction form specifically to an invoice that has, you know, all of these different characteristics that it can offer. And specifically, while we're here today, is to talk about the printing layouts or the PDF outputs that we get. Because I showed you all something incredibly grotesque and large, I'm going to change to an advanced printing type because I have some better ones kind of queued up for us. So I have a new option here. So Stratos invoice PDF HTML template. That is an advanced template and we can go find it, but we will later because I switched to this advanced printing type. I'm going to quickly save it and I will go back to that invoice once this change has been made. Awesome. So that's saved. I'm going to go back to the invoice. It's in my recent records. Awesome. Back to the print button. So this time I expect a much better looking screen to pop up. Apologies again for the image overlay issue. Wow, that was a good one. So same print button. Should expect a little better PDF to pop up here. I've done a little bit of work on this just to kind of show and tell and talk with you all. There we go. But this is kind of the end result, if you would. I've skipped ahead a little bit, but this is the end result of kind of what we're after. Again, this is a newer NetSuite template, so you can kind of tell by this huge total box. That's always the dead giveaway for me. This is going to come standard for pretty much all of your advanced templates. I've obviously added a couple of customizations that we're going to get back to, but I think I need to go back to my slides because we've got to learn something so that we can answer some CPE questions. Awesome. Thanks for hanging in there with me. Let's quickly blow through these standard templates. Again, not the reason we're here, but it's important to know where we come from. So custom HTML templates, I believe these were the first iteration that, NetSuite had to offer. I don't know, was it 25 years ago? Maybe they put this out. So this was the original option again for creating some output. It is code only. There's no free marker engine or support. So we'll talk about that later, but that really controls the logic and really the smartness. It does require code knowledge, obviously, since it's code only, it's really not user friendly. And I would say it's seldomly used. There's maybe some edge use cases, but I have not found them. And then custom PDF templates. Again, my understanding that this is the newer option, maybe to try and replace this older like HTML template option. It is that user interface customization that I briefly showed you. We'll go back to it. Again, no access to scripts, conditional logic, loops, anything kind of nice. It is more user-friendly. Again, because we saw it, we can drag and drop, we can point and click, we can type things in. It's kind of nice in that way. I would say that this can be used. I've definitely seen clients use it. I see it all the time actually pop up. I just don't know. I don't know that the people that I see use this have the understanding of maybe why it's there, or perhaps that there are other options. So again, that's what I hope to kind of ingrain in you today. And again, just less control, a little more simpler. I'll harp on it later, but I think these, kind of outputs that we have to our clients are some of the most important forms of communication that we have, right? If a client doesn't hear from you and all they're getting is invoices and statements, and maybe those don't even look that good. Maybe they're not the same colors that you use. Maybe it's a different font. Maybe it doesn't really fit your brand image. Maybe it's harsh. Maybe it's cold. That really does say a lot that it's really unspoken. So again, part of what I'm here today is to teach you about the advanced ones. So I haven't even gotten there yet, but that is the end goal, is professionalism. It's communicating through our words and our actions and our branding. Yeah, thanks again for listening to me talk. Next slide, please. Awesome.
Pierce, sorry to interrupt. Are we ready for the first polling question at this point?
I was just looking. I think we are. Ooh, I'll look at the chat. See if anyone's roasting me yet.
Yeah, so there's going to be a few questions that maybe we can answer like at the break or maybe even after the presentation. But yeah, I think we can go ahead and I'm going to bring up that first polling question. So hang on just a moment here. So first CPE polling question, I'm going to launch that right now. We'll give everybody about a minute to answer. So that's the first CPE polling question. So the question is, custom PDF templates allow for written code, true or false?
I hope I got it right. Could be embarrassing.
So if you can't see the CPE question, you may need to update your Zoom app. If you're on a browser, I've heard that the CPE questions don't pop up on a regular basis. If you miss one, I think it's okay. So, but try and maybe update your Zoom app. Jeff said he's on a browser showed for him, so that's good. Thanks, Jeff, for confirming that. All right, so we're going to go ahead and end the polling question at this point. And I will share the results. And the answer is Pierce.
Ooh, custom PDF templates do not allow for written code. That is false.
Okay, and you don't have to get the answers right for the CPE. So I'll go ahead and stop sharing. And then we'll do another one in about 15 minutes or so. Or actually probably a little bit less, Pierce, if we get to that point.
Yeah, I think we're close. Okay. Yep, so that one was false because this is the custom PDF layout. I know we just briefly touched on it, but this is the drag and drop functionality that you get with the standard out of the box kind of functionality. So, I'm dragging my company logo way up to the left-hand side. I've got some interesting controls here that I can do. I mentioned this column section earlier. So you see it just says columns. I really don't have much I can do here. This is just going to print out columns that I tell it to on the entry form. Again, we can add some custom elements. There's some interesting things that we can do. We're just never going to get any of that filtering or any of that conditional kind of logic. I can write in some text that shows, but I can never make it happen conditionally. It's really just going to leave me kind of stuck. It's going to make me create 1,200 of these different PDF layouts for all the different customizations that I need to be successful, which means that I'm going to have 1,200 entry forms for an invoice. And that's going to be impossible to manage. I've been there. It's not enjoyable. So that is, again, the first kind of iteration that is standard. I've seen clients use it. It can work. I don't recommend it at all. Popping back to our presentation here. So yeah, effectively this result or this screen that I just showed you in the NetSuite UI is how you control this output. This is what I attempted to show you, except the American flag took over. So again, columns is going to output all of like our item table here. And then we're just choosing what columns we want to show or not show. And again, it works. You can do it, just not going to get you far. All right, let's talk about why we're here. It only took 30 minutes. Advanced PDF HTML examples. So again, I mentioned that I can kind of smell these from a mile away. So this one on my left or your left, this is kind of what I'm used to seeing since I've been in NetSuite for so many years. It was always this one. So all of your standard templates are gonna somewhat look and smell like this. It wasn't until I believe Suite Success rolled out and they had their different verticals that they offered is where we got our first kind of more modern look to invoices. Seriously, my challenge to anyone out there is to make a beautiful, stunning invoice. That would be amazing to see. I just don't even know if it's possible. All right, some core benefits. Again, why we're here, the advanced templates. So advanced PDF HTML templates is a mouthful, so I'm going to call them advanced templates. Advanced versus standard. We always want advanced. So again, I talked about that your documents are often the face of your company, right? We're sending invoices, we're sending quotes, we're issuing purchase orders, we've got statements going out every month. Those leave an impression. Having this like professional level kind of full control over all of our different, I guess, components of the output, like our logos, our colors, our design, everything like that is so crucial, especially in today's day and age where maybe we're remote, we're not seeing our clients. This is something to consider. Better branding does equal better trust. I've got to believe that's how it works. And really, NetSuite is offering you that professional level styling, which offers that consistent customer experience because we can do this same type of template for almost everything we're sending to a customer. This specifically is going to give us some greater access to the data within our NetSuite system. Like I mentioned before, the standard ones had some of this, But to really be able to see it and use it, this is the big benefit, is having this kind of free marker engine, which skipped ahead again. But because of that, we do get this greater access. I want to say you get access to everything, but I keep running into issues where I can't access one silly field. Classic NetSuite. So HTML, CSS, and free marker, the combination of these three, you could call them languages if you would. The combination of those three is really what's going to allow for that professional level detail, as I mentioned. The addition of free marker, which is kind of the piece that separates it all, is the most kind of powerful. So this makes me think like there's easier updates that I have to have, which means there's less technical dependency, which I love that. Conditional logic. This is really what's going to allow us to become customizable and scalable. So having conditional logic means, like I mentioned before, we no longer need to have 12 different templates that print out something different because someone, wants a silly change, or this customer prefers to see it this way, or, this vendor doesn't want to see this data. So having this engine, this set of, procedures that we can follow, allow us to conditionally display, hide, show, change, make mandatory, do whatever we need to do to customize that without having to have multiple different templates. Dynamic content. I think I see some of this in the chat, and we'll talk about it a little bit more today. So, you'll have a different logo for every subsidiary that you might have set in NetSuite, or we'll briefly touch on like signatures, right? Maybe based on your approval record, you want to show the CEO signature if it's over so much counts, or not count, but dollar amounts. So having the ability to dynamically, with that conditional logic, put that all together is, again, what's going to allow us to scale, customize, and not have so many forms and templates rolling around. So the dynamic content to me is really less manual work, and that's obviously more time saved. Gotta love that. We'll talk about, I see it in the chat too, we'll talk about maybe changing a logo or resizing a logo and how that can affect the template, but most importantly, how easy it could be if you have it all set up correctly. And then again, customizations to meet external needs. So we all have some external kind of shareholders in our lives and in our worlds. So whether it's a customer, a vendor, your boss, whoever that might be, you might need to customize to meet their specific needs. And again, this is going to allow you to do that across all of our different record types. And as a bonus, kind of later on, we'll talk about some other, fringe use cases or outside of the box cases. And again, custom output is really just leading to happy relationships. So I always talk about customers because typically the most important of any business. Being able to scale and customize to them, for them, is going to be crucial. So, Corey, we might be at the next question.
Okay.
No, we are not. Just kidding.
Yep. I'll go ahead and pop that one up here. Let me go back. So question number 2, CPE question number 2. I'll go ahead and launch the poll. We'll wait about a minute or so here. The question is, advanced PDF templates don't allow drag and drop features.
Oh, I'm early.
That's all right. We'll take the guesses. So about 30 seconds left for the second CPE question. So not drag and drop as the plugin, but drag and drop as in modifying the template layouts. Okay, last chance for CPE polling question. I'll go ahead and end the poll. I'll share the results, and then Pierce, the answer is
Advanced PDF templates do allow drag and drop features, but I was a slide early in doing this, so it was a good guess. And I kind of set it up that way. So good reinforcement learning that we can do right now.
right.
Awesome. So actually, I have a good slide for this. WYSIWYG. WYSIWYG, WYSIWYG, WYSIWYG. It's so fun to say. I would love to start maybe like a running like inside joke with all 96 of us, just to start saying WYSIWYG, like maybe yell it at your pet or your partner, whatever that might look like. It's just such a fun word. WYSIWYG, you got to like shake it off and kind of get it all out. But WYSIWYG, I promise I'm not making it up. NetSuite calls this out specifically in, I know someone whose dog was named WYSIWYG. That's amazing. Thanks for sharing that, Sue. WYSIWYG, what you see is what you get. This is what NetSuite is promoting to us. They tell us this is what it's called. Use WYSIWYG in place of YOLO. I love it. Let's talk about WYSIWYG. So I did kind of set you up for failure. I made this big thing about drag and drop being like a cool feature, but maybe not meeting our standards that we need. Gosh, what am I filtered by? So I'll show you where I'm at right now. I'm at customization, forms, advanced PDF templates, PDF HTML templates, and I'll probably be living here the rest of the day. So if you navigate here, you'll see all of the different records. You'll have to scroll through a ton of custom records, but you'll have everything kind of at your fingertips that you can edit that will eventually lead to an output. So basically the standard one that comes in most to all NetSuite editions is going to be the standard invoice PDF HTML template. You can tell that because it has this customize button next to it, meaning that it has not been touched, and that we are customizing from beginning, from new. So I'm going to click that. This may be how you start your first kind of dive into this technology, into this code. Is maybe you're going to go and you're going to find the standard invoice template. And this is the first screen that you're going to get. Again, I kind of set you up for failure, but we do have drag and drop features within the advanced PDF HTML template, only if you're in the WYSIWYG mode. Gosh, that's a fun word. So for example, if I don't want my title there, I can drag it somewhere else. It won't go where I want it to be, and that will look terrible, but I can do it. I can move invoice date. It'll fall over there next to the title. Again, I didn't want to be the one teaching you this because I don't use these drag features. But certainly we can, remove sections. We can make some interesting edits here. It is a good tool. I don't use it enough to teach you about it. I would say that this is an acceptable form of editing your advanced PDF HTML templates. However, in the future, if you do need to write code, which is what I'm going to share with you all, and again, a really important kind of concept here is the writing of the code. Once you need to do that, and we actually have to flip here to the source code, it's gonna be a little wonky. It might be crazy. Definitely not a developer. I've got an accounting background. But the developers that I've talked to, not thrilled about the source code that NetSuite offers, especially after it's been edited like this. They've got a lot to complain about anyway. But again, this is an option. I've seen it work. Maybe to talk about it a little bit. You look at my CPE questions. All right, we're good. So maybe talk about it a little bit. This is kind of that dynamic content I talked about. So for starters, this table here, right? We've got these field values going across the top. Now, this isn't just going to be a blank form that we print out and fill in with, you know, pen. It's going to actually print off from the invoice that we look at. And it's going to have these references that pull in the properties values into these fields. If you're with me so far, and that's easy to follow, I promise you, you're 75% of the way there. So again, set you up for failure. You do have that option. Again, what I'm typically in is the source code, actually editing the code, and I won't click into that right now because it's a lot. But I'm gonna go back to our PowerPoint. Everyone say WYSIWYG, you know, a couple more times, get it out. Maybe stand up, take a breath. Next slide. Awesome. So we've made it to the common use cases. I am not at all going to be able to get through all of these. But I knew that coming into this. So I really kind of wanted to put out there what
I will
I
send that
see.
over to you, Omar.
What I see the most. Well, what I assume I see the most. These are what came to my mind. So invoices, and again, take it as it will. These could apply to sales orders. These could apply to quotes, kind of anything in this like AR, even statements is similar, but you know, one thing we see a lot is links. Can we link back to our website? Can we link the item, you know, back to our website that the item's page is on, or like the item page? Can we have dynamic logos, right? Mentioned it again. You don't want to have so many forms and fields just because you need to have a different logo. So my subsidiary, my multi-world people out there, multi-world, that's a new one. One world, multi-subsidiary. This is for you, similar to the addresses, bank account routing. This was a huge one for me. I came from an end user and we acquired 17 companies in the few years that I was there. So tons and tons of subsidiaries, bank accounts, countries, everything that we needed to deal with. And I told you, I only ever want one form, so we better get it right. Conditional logic for totals. So print this or don't print this, you know, things like that. Don't show me the shipping amount. Don't show me the tax percentage. Similar for statements. You know, typically it's like a custom footer or we're updating the like remittance slip that prints out. Someone wants to change, you know, charge to like billed amount. So we're changing like the headers that we see. Mentioned the remittance form. We want payment links. So similar to invoices, you might want a payment link that is either native with NetSuite that you have to sign up and kind of validate through them, or you just want to send them to your website where maybe they log into your portal. Custom messages, again, like, thank you for being a valued customer. Maybe we want to add something like that. Maybe if they're not paying, we want to, you know, put the pressure a little bit and kindly ask them to remit payment. Usually some date conditionals. So when did the period close for the statement? When are we trying to calculate it? Purchase orders. I don't see many people printing vendor bills, but I'm sure you could. This is typically custom, you know, notes instructions specific to that vendor. So we're not going to create a new vendor form every time we want to change the messaging. We want some dynamic shipping addresses. So maybe if it needs to route somewhere else first prior to our end location, maybe we need some customization or some logic around that. Typically vendors get really specific about the line items. So maybe you I don't know, have to have a certain format of how you need the line items. The drag and drop could do that. But the conditionals that we are going to talk about too may change that or could help that. Especially if your vendors require differently. Again, you don't want multiple forms. Maybe some line sequence numbering. It's a little bit more of a script concept, but we'll talk about it. And then another example is just like terms and conditions. So again, thinking big picture, these might not apply to you. You might be an e-commerce site and you might think, I don't send invoices, I don't send statements, I don't really issue purchase orders. Totally fine. These might not apply to you. Hopefully some of the other ones we talk about will. Or perhaps this, opened your mind to some other ideas. Again, I think maybe the less common or the more fringe use cases might be more applicable because I do know that, yeah, e-commerce might not have a huge need for utilizing these NetSuite forms. So let's go look at some. We've got a few minutes before our break. So we've already looked at the one invoice. Let's see if I still have it up. We've already looked at this invoice. So let's walk and talk through it quickly. One thing I think everyone needs is a nice logo. I didn't know what other business to use, so I went ahead and picked Stratos. So I always think you need a nice logo, whether it's in the left corner, right corner, doesn't necessarily matter. This seems more typical, but having it spaced correctly, having it, not being microscopic. Hopefully we didn't extend the image within the code and now it's kind of blurry, right? Making sure we have that set up, I think, is always crucial. And it just takes a little fine touch. I don't know, really, I've just done it so much that I think it's easy now, but it is difficult. Down here, for example, is a payment link. Now, if I click on it, it's going to take us to Stratos ERPpartners.com. That's here nor there, but just an example of a potential link that you can do. Obviously, these can be a little more dynamic and route you to a payment center. Maybe it's specific to this invoice and that's all tagged and mentioned. I think one thing to note, perhaps I skipped over it. So I'm thinking about our CPE questions. Oh, sorry, you guys are getting dizzy again. Yeah, so really the greater access to all of our different record fields, sublists, and related records. Corey, that's your cue for a CPE question.
All right, we'll go ahead and pop up the next one here.
Actually, do 3 and 4. We should be good.
Okay, will do. So here's CPE question number 3. A multiple choice. Uh, 15 seconds left for this CPE question. All right, I'm going to go ahead and end the poll here. Share the results. It looks like we had a unanimous, almost unanimous.
B isn't wrong.
It's true.
We'll count
it. So yep, D, all the above. All right, I'm going to go to the next polling question. Number 4. True or false? CPE question number 4. So just a quick note, I was wondering about like a vendor bill, and it doesn't look like on vendor bills you can do an advanced PDF template. They only give you the option to do the standard. Oh no, that's not true. It is only advanced PDF. Anyway, side note. So 15 seconds left for this question 4.
You know, I've had clients that want to print out the GL impact
Yeah.
and kind of like staple it to the bill. So I get it. There's a place for that.
Yeah. Okay, we'll go ahead and end this poll. And the answer is
These are true.
It is true. You can embed external images such as logos and signatures in advanced templates using direct URL links. Okay.
Yes. Yep.
We'll go ahead and just keep on moving along.
Awesome. Yeah, without looking under the hood, I think Mike put that in the chat. Without, looking too closely, this is actually living. This image is living in my NetSuite file cabinet. And I am able to reference the URL within the file cabinet that instantly pulls this into here. Just some other examples are that of, we can pull in like a file, like a W9 that we need to send out to vendors. We can attach a file directly to, a template like this and have that go out. Links, signatures, I don't know that we'll get to really, but signatures are an interesting one. So whether you're doing contracts or you just need a signature to show that, hey, you're signing off on this, that is all possible within the system. And then the question before, tried to get back to here just to give you the answer, but yeah, really getting access to all of the different record fields, sublists, which are, anything related to NetSuite, or anything related to a transaction. So think line items typically in sublists, and then related records, which are going to be, if we're on an invoice, a related record is a customer. If we're on a expense report, a related record is the employee. Awesome. Let's see. I'm going to quickly hit on some more common customizations. So I mentioned it before, we've got a couple, I put invoices, statements, and purchase orders just as like the most common examples, but I also see tons of requests for pick tickets, item labels, sales orders, quotes, checks and vouchers. That's actually a huge one. Bill of materials, packing slip, and then some of the more common requests. So including a file attachment. Can we have languages and translations? Yes, you can. It's hard to read the tables. Could we add like a striping logic just to separate one from another? Absolutely. Can we add signature lines? Not just signatures, but maybe just a blank line that we need to actually fill in. Can we use our font? Can we update our branding? I see these a ton, and again, kind of backs up the point of how important these really are to your business and, to the entire growth of your company. Feel like we're at a good point for a break. We didn't quite make it to the less common use cases, but we'll hit them hard. Let's quickly finish up on some of the use cases, but this time a little less common. Not to say that it doesn't happen, but just to say they're maybe a little outside the box. So again, hopefully thinking that this can maybe unlock some new thinking, or maybe an idea that's stored somewhere in your brain. All right, so a couple of interesting ideas. So printing custom records. So custom records. If you're not familiar, I think the best way to put custom records is If you're entering something into an Excel sheet and tracking it by yourself or with your team, whatever that looks like, we should put that in NetSuite. If it's important and you're able to track it and do something with it, right? Like have reporting, have actions, have statuses, put that in NetSuite. That's what I would consider a custom record. Anything that NetSuite doesn't have to offer, but is important to you, your business. Really, as I mentioned, the biggest part of adoption into a NetSuite instance is having it be you or your company. And I think this is a beautiful way to do so. So quick example, I have a customer who tracks complaints on their like care line of products. So they have to do it for certain like federal regulations. But it's something that they do in Excel. It's something that they keep offline. It'll never be tied really back to the customer, which it can be in NetSuite, and it's tied to the customer and the item. And anyway, going on about a custom record I'm excited about. But the exciting thing here is that we can also print that or have a specific template to a custom record. So that's one example. Another one is kind of like from an item, or if you're like printing off like a one pager, maybe for marketing. You might not use NetSuite, but it is a solid option, especially because it's always there and live in your NetSuite system. I mentioned like contracts earlier. I have built a full contract like PDF system. It was interesting. And then maybe like warranty is a good side of that. And then also like terms and conditions. Michelle, yes, I am going to show the customer complaints, and I actually skipped through a couple other examples earlier, so I promise I'll get back to those. The other side of this also is printing safe searches. So I know that sounds crazy. I was born in the 1900s, so like I have a fond memory, maybe a faint memory of clicking the print button like on the internet, and we're like printing the entire internet page. That's kind of what this feels like, but we can do a little bit more with it. And so the interesting piece there is like, maybe we don't always have all of that data in one transaction. Or, you know, in the case of like an inventory count, one of our clients doesn't use bins. They don't really have NetSuite built out to help them with inventory counts, but they have a certain sequence code that they follow. So we were able to create a safe search and sort it by that sequence code, which then we can print out into like a physical count sheet that they can physically print and like have their team, their warehouse associates go around and like fill in those boxes. Not saying it's my favorite solution because then you have to enter it into NetSuite, but it is an outside the box thought. Similar with like item labels or maybe like an item price list. You can build all of these within a safe search, get all the data you'd like, and then have the ability to print this out to like maybe a more customer facing friendly form rather than just like an Excel sheet. Employee census, maybe a very less common one, but I thought it was an interesting thought or idea. I do want to show you guys some of this, so promised I would, and I'm a man of my word. All right, so we're living in customization a lot. So I tell you, this is where I like to be in NetSuite. If you put me in like journal entries, I get a little nervous. But let's not look at the code right now. Let's go look at the output. So I'm going to go find my custom records. So customizations, record types. Again, if you're tracking something like, I don't know how many times the customers come to your store and you know what they're doing, maybe you're tracking that in Excel. Maybe you consider putting that in NetSuite. So I've built out a custom record called customer complaint. I'll take you to the one that I filled out just so we're not wasting any time. I have no complaints. That's how good I am. I guess just one complaint though. So kind of a its general form, but it is NetSuite coded, so everything feels and looks like NetSuite, which is one of the reasons I really like these. If you have any questions on these, I love talking about them and kind of exploring like what options we have. Because from here, we have a world of possibilities with all of this data and how it's linked and how we can track it. Oh my gosh, I'm getting excited. Okay, so big picture here, we can print this guy. So we'll look at it for a second. Got some generic fields like customer, sales order. Today I am Catherine Glass. I introduced myself as Pierce Blodgett, but I go both ways. So let's print this guy. Now I have done some of this HTML work, so obviously don't expect this to automatically pop up when you print any custom record, but we do have the ability to write this code. And again, in this case, my customer does still need to like print this off and have it on file. There's even like a little management section. One of my favorite parts about my job is being able to introduce new technology, but also connecting it with maybe the more manual technologies like pen and paper. I think this is really an interesting concept, but something cool. Again, hoping it kind of unlocks some potential customizations for you in your instance. The other one I wanted to talk about was the save search. So created a save search about an employee census. Perfect. So I'm here. I'm at a save search. I'm seeing the results. This is great. What am I going to do with this? I don't know, but I have a print button. Why would I have a print button? I get Excel and PDF. I get that, but why would I have a print button? Because I can designate a template that I want to print these results. So this will be a really kind of, I think it's a good core of just understanding how this like template engine, this advanced template engine can work with NetSuite and take, some data like this, like an Excel sheet to really full circle that discussion. Really to just take that data and do something with it. So if I print the default one, oh my gosh, like printing the internet, like what are we looking at? Get out of there. But if I print the template that I have associated with this save search, and I've already gone through and done some of this code, and I can print now my results. So the idea for this was, hey, maybe I own the Rocky Mountain NetSuite user group and I want to get an idea of who all attended this meeting, or maybe all of my users. But I'm not really tracking that anywhere. Actually, they are. That's a total lie. But in this case, I can now print those results and have something a little more flavorful to look at than what I just provided. Some interesting things about this, and I promise we'll get into the code at some point, but I've added this like counter over here on the left. So we're now counting the different rows in this sub list, which is effectively those safe search results. And I've also sorted by first name, which you can do in the safe search, but I've also done it here within the actual code. Right. Let's see. I think that covers, yeah, just some examples of the custom records printing. And then again, this kind of fringe one is the safe search, but it is kind of cool. Again, challenge you to come up with an example that you might think could work. Or, hey, you've been really struggling with this one thing, and oh my gosh, Pierce said something and it triggered something in my mind, and holy cow, I have an idea. How do we do that? How do we get to this step? What do we do next? I think that's what we'll cover in this upcoming section, is really more like the technical advanced details. Promised you I'd keep it light to this point. I sure hope it has been. If you're asleep, totally understand. I can't see you anyway. But let's move on to some of these advanced tactics. So once again, I've got some definitions for you, and I really thought I crushed with these slides, but I don't know. Okay, so FreeMarker, let's discuss. FreeMarker is NetSuite's template engine. So this is really what's making the magic happen behind the scenes. Really, it's generating those templates in a way that produces a PDF. HTML, this is a markup language. It's more readable, like user human friendly. It used to be ones and zeros, back in the 1900s, but we've since kind of adapted and made more human readable languages, which HTML and CSS kind of offer. Whereas HTML is kind of the structure of what your PDF looks like. CSS is the styling or the look, the feel, the smell of what this PDF document is. HTML and CSS are very common, but they might be the only one used in like dynamic website building. So again, once we get through some of this today, you are basically a web developer, or you have enough to be dangerous. Record field. So we've talked about records, so, such as an invoice. But now we need to talk about the fields. So this isn't a great example, but let's say this was invoice.vendor. That's not a thing. Invoice.customer. That specific field, customer on the invoice, or in this case, quantity on the item, is going to be the relational property of that field. David put a good question in the chat. This does get convoluted to try to keep up with and find. I do have good resources that I will share. That NetSuite tries to really lay out the lay of the land on how to make some of this happen. But this is a good introduction. This kind of curly bracket, little mustache guy. You'll see this syntax used a lot, but this is how we reference a specific field. Sublists, we've talked about a touch, but sublists are going to be really any related records to another record. So think about your purchase order line items on a purchase order, or your invoice line items on an invoice. They are the invoice, but they're kind of not. They're their own sublist, if you would. They're their own special kind of guest star in this. So we do have to treat them a little differently. So it's important to call them out that sublists are going to be special. We accept them for who they are. A loop we will kind of briefly talk on. I'm sure there's some more technical people in the crowd that, tell me if I'm wrong. I'm happy to always listen and learn, just like I hope you are happy to listen and learn from me. So loop is kind of a way that we deal with sublist because we have to go through the entire sublist. It's not just item or invoice.customer. We now have multiple items that we have to reference. So a loop is just a repeating action. That's why it's a loop. That makes total sense. And then a condition. So really just logical decisions. We have inputs, other factors that may drive this, but a condition is typically like the if this, then that, or if else, null, something like that. So big scary code coming on screen. No, I'm just kidding. It's not that scary. You guys have seen it. Just to kind of get a sense, like I said, this is a more readable kind of computer language. So they do try to make the most of it in terms of, okay, I can look at this kind of as a nobody, non-developer. And I do get the general sense, like, sure, whatever that says, I recognize sans serif, that makes sense. Font size, cool, yeah, I'm with you. And then we get some interesting things down here, but I can read, hello, Rocky Mountain NetSuite user group. And I promise you, if you can do this, the advanced templates are gonna come together easy for you. I will show you more and more of how that works, but I promise this is not as scary as it seems. And I only say that because I was terrified when I was first put into this. So again, cheering you on. Let's break it down a little bit. This gave me flashbacks to a Disney Channel movie called Smart House, and I totally dated myself there. But I've already told you I was born in the 1900s, so shouldn't be a surprise. But I think Smart House is a great analogy for kind of this whole beast that we're talking about today. So HTML, CSS, and FreeMarker, these are the three components that make up the advanced templates. So let's break it down. HTML, the physical kind of structure. So we talked about it earlier, how the HTML is the components, or, you know, the build, the skeleton, if you would, of these templates. So think about it like the walls, the floors, all the framing, the blueprints. That's really what HTML is. If you look at any website, it's gonna have the same kind of structure, if you would, maybe different walls and floors and all that good stuff. But for the most part, they're all the same. They have a header, they have a body, they have a title typically. It's pretty basic. This technology's been around for years and years and years, and I don't even know that it's gotten much better. CSS, the style and appearance of our house. So think of CSS as like your interior designer. So we want the walls this color, we want the couch this size, you know, we need these windows. These are all the kind of creative or design elements that are really going to add some like visual polish to the skeleton that we have. So again, harping on really how important it is to have your branding, your image, your logos, all of that up front and done. And NetSuite's giving you this ability to have this professional level structure and design. I keep clicking the slide and I don't mean to. So then we get to the Smart House. I talked about Smart House. What makes it smart? It's this FreeMarker template engine. This is really controlling, you know, conditionals. Like, I don't know if any of you remember the movie, but weird things were happening anyway because the house was possessed, perhaps. But like if we walk into a room and it notices that, it's going to automatically turn on the lights for us. So similarly, FreeMarker within our template design is going to do all of the smart kind of automation. Keep doing that. So like we're going to check who entered the house and adjust things accordingly. You know, in this smart house situation, we're going to like turn on the thermostat and add our favorite playlists. But really in the templates, you know, it's looping through our sublist items. It's printing that on a separate table. You know, it's finding that if the discount amount is greater than 0, it's going to show you a discount field. It's making everything intelligent. And this is what we don't have within the standard templates. We don't have that like beautiful, like the logic that kind of brings it all together. We simply have, you know, a beautified skeleton, but not a smart one. Someone mentioned the show Eureka. I've got to add that to my list. All right, some more code. Hopefully, again, not too scary. But let's talk about FreeMarker for a second. So, I mean, really think of FreeMarker as like the logic glue. It's holding us together. You know, I've put a lot into these FreeMarker templates, and I know it's going to work. One, because I need it to, but two, because I trust it. It's smart. It does what I ask most of the time. But it's really, yeah, it's going to do what we need to do, how often, what conditions, etc. So I added this little code snippet here that we'll go look at really in person of what this means. But some of the key features, we're going to be able to like insert fields. So we talked about this briefly, like, okay, I want the current record I'm on. I want that transaction date. So if I'm on a sales order and I add this bit of code, this $ is the reference to what's in this. If I add that bit of code, then I'm going to get the date of the record that I'm currently printing. We'll go through that. I can show and hide content with conditions. So if a column's blank in my, I don't know, my line items, if that's blank, I don't just want to print a blank column. Maybe I want to replace it with something. Maybe I just want to hide it altogether and not show that column. I mentioned, again, it's going to repeat with our loops. It's going to go through all those item sublists. That's a huge benefit. We're able to format text, dates, currency, really anything you need to maybe, make it more you, make it more of your business, or really just make it more readable and personable. Mention these kind of common tags. You'll see them a lot. I just wanted to introduce them here, but there's no quiz or question on these. So your $ and your curly brackets or your mustache, those are going to print a field. Those are going to grab these fields that we talked about up here, and that is your reference to get those fields. This if, it's a part of our conditionals, our conditional display. Conditionals do really well in NetSuite. They don't do well with spouses and partners. You probably don't want to use these outside of NetSuite. The if-thens or the, if this, then else. Yeah, maybe stay away from that. You'll see these lists, again, just making them noticeable here because they are pretty much built into every template that has a sub list, like invoices. And then we have these like formatting helpers, or you might know them as functions, but they all start with this kind of question mark and then have some sort of like reference or name or function to the end of them. So question mark string is going to convert whatever field we might have, like record.transaction date. It's going to convert that to a string. So maybe we want that to display with the long name, like May 21st, 2025, rather than 05-21-2025. All right. I mentioned that we were going to go look at this. I am a man of my word today. So we'll talk about it briefly. This is an if-else statement with an if kind of built into it. So it's a nested if. I don't want to get too hung up on that, but let's talk through it. So if subsidiary.logo helper, formatting helper, question mark length is not equal to 0. So basically in computer terms, if the subsidiary logo is not blank, we want to go and print an image. I keep clicking. We want to print an image, and the source of that image is going to be a joined field. I picked the most complicated one to start off with. I apologize. It's a joined field, so it is our $ reference. To get the field, it's going to reference subsidiary, which is going to be related to whatever we're printing, like a purchase order. And it's going to get that subsidiary's field value. So the dot denotes the join or the field join that we want. It's going to get that logo. So essentially, if there is a logo on the subsidiary that we are printing, we want to print that subsidiary's image or logo. Some of this jargon is just NetSuite and kind of how we have to structure it. I've seen a different set of this code that works, but this is the one that NetSuite references, and it does work. The conditional piece here is the else. So it's basically saying if the subsidiary logo does not have a value, it doesn't exist basically, then we want to go and print the company information logo. So think of the logo that appears in the top left corner of your NetSuite. This is our conditional. So if this is happening, do this, else we want to look to this and then do something else. Now, typically you might see a third set here that says if both of these are false or don't exist, we don't have images, then display, I don't know, maybe another image, maybe something we've hard coded, or in this case, we just don't display anything. All right, I know that was a lot. Thanks for hanging in there with me. Let's pivot back to our invoices. So I'm going to take you to a list of invoices. And I'll show you kind of where the magic's happening. And this is going to be based around that subsidiary logo that I just mentioned.
Pierce, I think actually let's take if it's all right, just take a quick break for a CPE question.
Sure.
I think that the next question we'll skip in order because you covered number 6, but we'll come back to number 5. So I'm going to go ahead and pop up the next CPE question. That should be, let's go with this one. All right, CPE question is posted. About 30 seconds left for the CPE question. Okay, CPE, 5 seconds. All right, I'll end the poll, share the results, and the answer is
A, we got to start every reference to our fields with that $sign.
all right. Perfect. And I'll interrupt you again when we're ready for the next one. Pierce.
Sounds good.
All right.
Appreciate you. All right. Recognize I've been a little long-winded, so I'm going to try to speed us up. If we don't get through all the slides, I know that Corey will post them online, but I'm also always around. And like I said, willing to help out on your journey to this kind of technical pathway as best I can. So I want to discuss forms and subsidiaries specific to that last bit of code we looked at. So this is a fairly common use case, and maybe you guys will be sick of me talking about it because you already know it, but based on the subsidiary selected on a transaction. So in this case, subsidiary of the United Kingdom, and on this invoice, it's United States West. Quick note that we are both using the same form called dynamic subsidiaries. Who named that? So I want to just show that based on the subsidiary, we can have some different like content populating dynamically through our conditions. So I'm going to first print you the United Kingdom. Amazing. Awesome. So only thing of note right now is that we have this flag up here. Not as big as the American flag was earlier, if you remember that. But keep that in mind. So great, I just printed an invoice. We know that the invoice has a specific custom form. We know that that custom form has a printing output specified to it. So every time I print an invoice on that form, it's going to have the same printing output that you see here. So if I go and print United States West, I could, surmise that I'm going to see the exact same setup. But wait a minute, we now have a different flag. So that is that small piece of code that we just brought up. And that's the ability to conditionally and dynamically control what's on our template in front of you based on some code changes and just based on some sound logic. So in this case, print a different logo based on the subsidiary. I only need to have one form. I only need this one custom form. It only ever needs this one advanced PDF HTML template, because I've now told NetSuite, hey, I need you to work for me. I can't be monitoring all these forms and templates. I need you to flex and scale to how I need it, which in this case is simply a logo. But let's take it a step further. Maybe I can split screen these guys. Close enough. All right. Another thing that you might see or may have noticed is down here, and this is not great formatting on my part, but and I see this a lot, is where we need to issue an invoice or statement, and we need to include our payment methods. Well, typically, maybe I only have one form, and I need it to perhaps go to a different bank account, right? If you're going to pay me through ACH, I need to specify where to pay that. And that's going to change a lot based on my subsidiary, especially if we're, in different countries. So this is another customization. And again, kind of common, but wanted to point it out because now we're able to dynamically control these like remittance bank account fields based on the subsidiary. So let me quickly show you that setup just to give you a little flavor of how I worked it. If I navigate to my subsidiaries, and then I'm going to click into UK and West. And maybe you didn't know this, but you can add custom fields to like a subsidiary or a location or a class. You can add custom fields to these layouts. And so in this case, I've added a simple bank name, account number, routing number, and address field to the subsidiary records. That way, per subsidiary, I can kind of preload or preset up some flavors, some values that I need to reference in the future without, again, having to make multiple templates that, then print this address. And again, the theme, if you haven't caught on, is automation and scalability, but removing ourselves from a lot of technical debt that comes with having, where are my invoices, multiple forms. Awesome. I saw some questions about this in the chat, and it's technically a struggle. NetSuite doesn't have great documentation about it, but really it's how do I know what fields I need to get? One of my favorites is an extension that I use, NetSuite Field Explorer. You are likely familiar with it, but it is a great extension just to help you get to that underlying data on any record. Maybe just to show and tell quickly. I don't have an invoice open. Crash. Awesome. So it's just an extension on your browser, Chrome, Edge, whatever you use. And this is going to give me some underlying data and the values. So this is another kind of, I wish I could zoom in for you all. I can't. This is another good way to kind of visualize NetSuite and like what's behind the scenes. So if I'm on an object, it's telling me it's an invoice, and I look at the due date field, it's now going to give me my value of that field, which is conveniently right here. The big part for me in this kind of developer sense is I need to know due date, one word, all lowercase. I need to know that reference because that's the field's internal ID. So similar to how this record has an internal ID of 47251, these fields have specific internal IDs or field IDs that are always the same. You can change some of them, right? If they're custom, some of them you can't, like due date. If we have time to talk about it, this is where you would enable that feature, kind of assuming most of you have, but showing internal IDs, again, this is going to unlock a lot, but mainly it's so that we can find like, okay, I've got this field sales rep, and that one's easy. That's a good one. PO number. PO number is what my NetSuite field form says, right? Maybe we change that to be more human readable. But NetSuite knows it as other ref num. So I need to know that value when I'm coding. So again, I like that one. NetSuite does provide their own set of instructions. They have, let's see, if I go to the help article section, that is where it all lives. This never works in a demo account. Oh, kind of worked. Let's see, how fast can I navigate? All right, so under Suite Cloud Platform and Advanced Template References, you now get all of the advanced templates that you could ever use. So I'll click on Invoice for the sake of brevity. And we can see that these are all the fields that you might see in NetSuite base level, not including any custom records or fields that you create, and then what those IDs are. So I'd say this is a great place to look. The other place to look is the WYSIWYG tab. WYSIWYG. In the WYSIWYG, when you click on the plus icon, it shows you all of the possible fields that you can reference. But you have to be in WYSIWYG mode, which doesn't bode well for source code editing. So I would recommend using that in a different screen just to pick and find your fields. But some combination of record browser, the field help, and clicking on the labels themselves is going to be the best kind of practice.
So I think that's real quick, a good break for our next CPE question. So I'm going to pop that one up real quick. And that is going to be number 5. All right. CPE question
When a
is
plan
up.
comes together.
Might be good to post the path to that the fields in the help center if we can, maybe after the meeting.
Yes, that sounds good. Like I said, I think everyone kind of has their own flavor of how they go about this and do it. And I think these are the 3 best resources, and you'll find your way, or you'll get really good at it. You might not even need to reference them at times.
Okay, last chance for the CPE question. Going once, going twice. I'm going to go ahead and end the poll. And we'll share the results. And the answer is
All the above.
okay. Excellent.
All right. This slide I can't skip over because it's very crucial to how NetSuite operates. So I think this little illustration does a decent job at kind of explaining like, okay, here's the code that we're seeing. Table is an HTML construct. Again, kind of producing like a Microsoft Excel type of output here in these tables. So we have a table callout, that's top and bottom. We have TR, an opening TR, which stands for table row. So table row meaning left and right. And then we have 3 table datas that are opened here and closed here. It's an important construct. Coding is opening and closing your different tags. So you can kind of see that in the first table row, we have 3 cells, which is always going left and right. New table row, 4, 5, and 6. Again, these are so important because most of everything that we print in NetSuite is going to have some sort of sublist, like a purchase order item or an invoice line item. And those are many items and joined, records to a single invoice, which is why we typically print them in tables and is why we have to have free marker and this kind of looping functionality to get through them. I think I've probably talked your ear off enough about dynamic content, but here's some decent examples just of how like that might work. So we'll look at this one, for example. So I can take the total amount of any record, like the total of an invoice, right, $100, minus the total amount paid on that same invoice reference, which is maybe $50. So I can now have a math formula that tells me $50 is kind of unpaid or in balance. Very simple example, but kind of gives you the insight you need, right? We're not filling these out all by form and hand. This is making NetSuite work for us. Really, the big tip here is that this is great and all, but adding in conditionals is really where the magic happens. So here's a good one. If statement, if we find that the record we're on and the amount remaining field helper greater than the value 0. So if the amount remaining on an invoice to be paid is greater than 0, then we are going to create a new message called payment is overdue. So again, a lot of if and then and when and why, and this is so important for scaling and and flexibility, really, just to make sure that you're not having to create something new every time you need something changed. All right, some best practices just from my purview. So previewing and saving, I kind of treat this save button in general as really something I don't want to touch until I know that the code that I just input is kind of ready to be, saved, because you can lose it, as many have put in the chat. Oh no, I didn't touch it that time. I scrolled. Awesome. So I always use this preview button, and I can flip to NetSuite just to show you quickly what that looks like. But it seems like I'm always using preview and much less of save until I know that I want to actually save that little bit of code. I think, as others have put in the chat, it's pretty imperative to kind of keep a backup. I'm not telling you to take all this data and go work in like Notepad++ or Microsoft Visual Studio. Like, I don't know if you need to do that per se, unless you're really technically sound in all of this. But effectively, let's say I want to make a change. So we're finally in the code. Let's say I want the font size to, I don't know, let's double it, 16 points. I don't really want to go and save this right now. In fact, saving it kicks me out of this template, which is totally not helpful. So save and edit would be the choice, but in this case, I just want to preview what changing the font size here did. Matter of fact, I'm going to preview first to get my like base level. So it'll give you some generic like lorem ipsum text and amounts and everything to fill in when you preview. It's not actual data, obviously, but we got our base level. Let's change our font size to 16 just to see what happens. Again, using the preview button to test my code, but not save it to the database. Because if I edit one of these live and it gets sent out, accounting's gonna yell at me, and I've dealt with that a lot. So let's compare. This was my original one, very small font, kind of hard to read. I'm getting old. And then we've got this bigger font. So really preview is the best practice just to see what kind of changes you're making, because I don't know if you want to save that per se. Some general tips. Again, they put it in the chat too, like flipping between source code and WYSIWYG causes all sorts of chaos and formatting issues, and you can lose data. It's a mess. So you really want to pick one, and hopefully I've kind of led you down the path of source code and exploring that. Creating a standard naming convention. This is for like custom fields, custom records. And if you're in control of that, you want to make it as easy as yourself when you're creating a custom record to know the name of it or the ID so that it's easier to reference when you're writing the code. And then a code repository, just have all of your useful code stored somewhere. Whatever little tips and tricks you have, store those somewhere just to refresh back to them. This is fairly, I don't know, straightforward, but really creating different versions, if you would. Like, I always like to copy and paste what I'm working on, put it somewhere safe and sound, just so I know that I kind of have the fallback. Sandbox is a great option. I've seen a lot where you can create like, okay, Stratos invoice PDF template v2, because I made some changes and this is the new version. That works. I'm not mad about that. Remember the preview button, and then if and when it all burns down, NetSuite has some sense of version control. So this is in the bottom left corner. You can kind of see your current version. And if you kind of append this little code, it's a little trick, you can get back to a previous version or an older code segment, if you would. And I've seen that come in handy when something gets really screwed up or we lose a bunch of data, but it's a feature, it's sometimes a bug. Again, kind of quickly wrapping up, like what's next? What does this mean for me? I told you that doing this kind of unlocked a lot more for me personally. There's some expert level moves that I haven't quite made, but you can reference the template in scripts so that you're printing that template via script and not like a print button, which is great for sending emails and all that good stuff. And then also you can generate your own code structure and print it off in your own way. This is, again, expert level, but sometimes necessary, because I mentioned we can't always get to all the data we need to in NetSuite. But again, things that you can kind of unlock now, like save searches. Once you've unlocked that HTML kind of trait, using this in save searches and workflows and formulas, those are going to get easier and you're going to be more intrigued and kind of like, I don't know, let's go make something cool. External forms, a little bit more expert level, if you would, but these are forms that you can host like on a website that customers fill out, and that data routes back to your NetSuite. So I've created a custom like customer satisfaction survey. It was all code. It got filled out by the clients, routed back all their answers to NetSuite. That's a custom record. We can take actionable and reportable like action on that custom record of the survey. Integration has been huge. Corey mentioned we do a ton of Sligo work. I really do think my technical, acumen is due to these PDF templates. And then quickly hitting you with some quick resources here. Corey, I think we're through all the CPE questions, if you'd like to launch them.
Yep, we have two more. Let's go ahead and launch those questions. Let me go back real quick. So CPE question 7, we'll have that one up right now. So CPE number 7. About 30 seconds left. CP question number 7, 5 seconds. All right, I'll end this one, share the results. And the correct answer is
Table. Great job.
table. All right, perfect. So let's go to the next. The next CPE question is a true false. The final CPE. Looks like we almost have everybody. All right, I'll go ahead and end the poll at this point and share the results. And the answer is
True. Please, please, please preview.
all right.
Awesome. So like Corey mentioned, I owe you all some kind of URL links, references, etc. to what I mentioned today, especially like the records browser. Sweet Answers is going to be your best friend on this. I found a lot of help in the Reddit team. Obviously, this NetSuite user group is a great resource. You've got a great president and boards, that I've met so far. So, use the network. That's why we're all here building together. Thank you guys so much. I super appreciate your attention and just being here. This has been a blast. I love helping my customers and clients and anybody in their NetSuite journey. So if you just want to talk, you got any questions, anything you learned today, or any NetSuite help in general, please reach out.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Pierce. Great presentation. We'll go ahead and at this point turn it over to Dana for our tips and tricks.
Great. Let me share my screen. One second. When I do that, okay, let me go to, was trying to do the, do you see it now, Corey?
Yep, looks good.
Okay. If I click on this, what happens? The slideshow? Or
No,
is it showing it?
I'm
Anyway,
seeing like the
We're just seeing
draft.
normal
Yeah.
PowerPoint.
so you're not seeing my notes on the side. Okay.
Nope.
No.
It's fine. This is a quick one anyway, everyone. It's sort of related to what we talked about today because you can set up obviously an advanced PDF template and then set that up on the transaction record and then email from there automatically. And what we're talking about today is just an alternative to how you want to send your transactions. And I'm using an invoice as an example. As you all know, on the customer record in the preferences, there's this little box that says send transactions via. And if you check that box, which I frankly don't always recommend unless you know exactly what you're doing, because the minute you check that box, anytime you save a record for that customer, credit memo, invoice, it'll shoot it off to them in an email. And sometimes that works great, but for the customer, for this solution that we're talking about today, they wanted to be able to review their invoices, make sure everything looked good before they sent them. So on the customer record, we didn't fill this in. we actually hid it from them so they couldn't accidentally set their customer record to email automatically. If they had checked email here, it would automatically check this to be emailed box in the communication tab of the transaction. And that's how this carries forward. And then this little box right here next to the to be emailed is the email addresses you want to mail it to. It'll automatically fill in with the email address from the customer record. In some cases, you may want to send it to more than one email address. And this one allows you to do that if you have a semicolon there. And so for this client, we created a custom field on the customer record that was emails for billing, we called it. And then we let them put in as many emails as they wanted, just with the semicolon. And then we had a script that fills this field in with the emails for billing. It doesn't check the box, but it fills it in. I think you could also do that with the workflow. I hadn't thought about that, but we did script it. But you could basically have on the customer record emails for billing, put a semicolon in between, and then come out here and have a workflow that updates this to be emailed box with that. And the idea is you import all of your transactions and you have the right email addresses right here, but you don't have this checked. Then you run a mass update and you filter your mass update. We have a checkbox for invoice delivered that we filter our mass update on. So we say, show me all of the invoices that haven't been delivered. And then there's some other filters on there too. But then in the mass update fields, you can actually check that to be emailed box. And so you've reviewed your invoices, you like them, you want them to be emailed. Instead of going into each one and checking it, we just do it this way where we do the mass update and we update the invoice delivered box at the same time. This test environment didn't have that invoice delivered checkbox on it. But if you do the to be emailed and the invoice delivered on this mass update, it's going to go into each record, check the box for the invoice delivered, check the to be emailed box, and then the minute it saves it, it's going to email that and show it under the communication tab of the customer of the transaction record. And so I thought that was a nice way to control the emailing without having that automatic box checked to shoot it out. Does anyone have any questions about that? All right. That was
Okay.
the tip and trick.
Awesome. Very cool. Thanks, Dana. Appreciate it. And then, so at this point, I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording and we'll turn it over to Mike, who's going to host our open forum. And again, a reminder on the open forum, you can ask any questions that you want. It doesn't have to be related to today's topic.